Hey, what's up guys? Welcome back to another video. In this one, I'm going to be reviewing the latest release to come from the micro brand ZELOS. Now, I don't think I can actually say ZELOS is a micro brand anymore. Chances are, if you're looking for an affordable dive watch that's just value-packed with great materials and design, then ZELOS is likely already on your short list. Now, the particular dive watch we're going to be looking at for this review is the version 3 of the Mako, which is ZELOS's mid-size dive watch, coming in with a case diameter of 40 millimeters. It really does hit that sweet spot for different wrist sizes. And new for the version 3 as well, ZELOS includes a very nice bracelet with this particular model of watch. Additionally, there are different color options available, and you can buy this watch in different materials. This watch is a full 316L stainless steel, coming in with the early bird price of $429. But if you'd rather get this watch in bronze, you can actually get it for around $399, but it does not come on bracelet. Now, of the different color options and materials available for this timepiece, the white version here in front of me, the frost style, is my favorite. It's fully loomed and just has a very clean look about it. Now, full disclosure, I did reach out to the owner of ZELOS. Elshin did kindly provide this watch to me for the review. And as far as I know, I don't have to return it. Now, I don't think this is going to affect my critiques of this timepiece, but please do keep that in mind throughout the duration of the review. Now, I can honestly say this is probably one of the best bang for buck dive watches that I've reviewed this year on the channel. So let's flip the camera around and take a closer look at the watch. Alright, you guys, so now that we're in the studio, you get to see what comes packaged with the ZELOS Mako 3. This watch does have a very nice wood engraved box here. You also get the watch that's shipped inside this very nice leather watch travel roll, which can actually house 3 other watches. So very nice value-added item when you purchase any watch from ZELOS. And then you might have seen a Tropic rubber strap on the bronze version of the Mako 3, but you also have that included if you purchase a regular stainless steel version. And ZELOS stepped up the buckle game. You got very nice ZELOS engraved buckle here, and the finish work on it is done very well. And this Tropic strap is quite supple, so it's very nice to have if you want to switch it up, if you want to cut down on the weight of the watch. Now, speaking of the overall weight for this watch, the bracelet does add some heft to it. Sized up for my wrist, this watch comes in at 171 grams, which is slightly heavier than you would assume for a 40mm diver. That said though, this bracelet is done very well. You have nice solid end links that integrate into the head of the watch quite well. Fairly good articulation, and look at the individual links, how they're rounded off with nice polished bevels along the side there. Very good job. You also have slot screws holding the links in place, which at this price point is pretty nice to see. It was easy to size the links, although I will say one of the screw links did reverse and almost come loose while I was wearing the bracelet. So you just might want to put some Loctite in if you're not sure that the screw links are going to hold well. And then I quickly want to touch on the clasp for this ZELOS Mako 3, because I know that there's been a few revisions of a clasp over different divers. This one is my favorite. I think they knocked it out of the park. Just look at the finishing on it. Deeply engraved ZELOS logo, nice polished bevels, and then twin trigger release here. Notice that you have a nicely milled out swing arm, and if you look on the underside here, there's actually a 2-post system here, so you actually have to depress both, and then you'll actually unlock the clasp here. This is similar to what you see on Christopher Ward divers, And also similar to Christopher Ward, you have this button under the clasp, which if you push in, you can get some incremental sliding adjustment for the lengths. Now getting back to the head of the watch, some other dimensions to consider. I did mention that this is a 40mm case size. Flipping to the side, lug to lug here between my thumbs comes in at a fairly compact 46mm. Now case thickness, if you grab it from the case back to the top of the bezel, the website claims it's 11.5mm, but if you actually measure to the top of this nicely domed sapphire crystal, I get a measurement closer to 14.4mm. This sapphire crystal is quite thick with a nice anti-reflective treatment on the underside, and that does help with the 300-meter water resistance rating on this watch. Now if you're a Mako aficionado, you might actually note that the original Makos actually had a 500-meter depth rating, so you're losing some water resistance, but honestly for me, 300 by far exceeds anything I'm going to do in the water. And then just look at the clean execution of this dial. I love how they maintain the symmetry of the dial by having the 6 o'clock date aperture that's cut out there. You have an applied ZELOS logo at the 12 o'clock position, and each of the hour indices is applied and has nice silver surrounds on it. And you do have the standard ZELOS Mako handset with a nice touch of orange there on the seconds hand, as well as the orange printing on the dial with the 300-meter depth rating. Now another nice subtle feature that adds a little bit of texture is you can see that there's a bit of a chapter ring that's raised at the very edge of the dial, where you have a 0 to 60 second track that's printed there. And then outboard of that, you have a very nice fully loomed bezel insert. This bezel insert is ceramic, so it's extremely scratch resistant. And it has almost like a brushed texture finish to it. And I think it complements the contrast of the white dial very nicely. Additionally, this bezel is unidirectional with 120 clicks. Action is a little stiff, like most ZELOS divers I've owned, but each detent of the bezel is extremely satisfying, and there is absolutely zero play in this bezel, which is great to see. Alignment on this bezel is also fantastic. Now, if you're a fan of ZELOS, you're probably aware that they knock it out of the park with low light legibility, because this thing lights up like a torch. You have a combination of C3 X1 lume that's on the luminous bezel insert, as well as on the indices and the hour and minute hand. And then the white dial itself actually is painted with blue BGW9 lume, and I think that also goes for the loomed portion of the orange second hand there. Overall, I'm extremely impressed with the application of the lume as well. It's evenly applied, lasts extremely long, and as far as lume goes, this is one of the best watches this year that I've seen for low light legibility. Now flipping to the side, I actually think the signed crown might be loomed as well, but the case finishing has really upped since the last iteration of the Mako as well. Just look at how on this side where the crown is, you have these really nice polished bevels that extend into the crown, and then they kind of get smaller as you go to the opposite side of the watch head here. You can see very nice teeth on the bezel. I do wish that the bezel was raised a little bit above the case flank here, just so it's a little easier to grip. Now another slight change from the previous iterations of the Mako is with the automatic movement housed inside the Mako 3. For this model, they utilized a high-beat Miyota 9015 movement, which beats away at 4 Hz, or 28,800 vibrations per hour. You have about a 42-hour power reserve, 24 joules, and it's hacking and hand wind. So if you unscrew the screw-down crown here, in the neutral position, you can manually wind up this movement. If you pull out to the first position, that's your quick date set feature. And then if you want to hack and stop the seconds hand to set the watch to a reference time, you can easily do that when you pull it all the way out. Note the crown tube feels extremely secure, and rethreading the crown is quite easy to do. Very nice texture on the crown. Now some people might be disappointed because in the past they used a Swiss Sellita SW200, which essentially has the same beat rate and similar power reserve. I think the only minor advantage to having the Sellita is you don't necessarily have the rotor wobble that comes with a Miyota one-way winding rotor. And you would also get a very rapid date change at midnight as opposed to a slightly delayed date change. But overall, I think they had to cut down on costs a little bit. Miyota movements are by far easier to source, and what you're sacrificing in terms of branding, moving away from a Swiss movement, I think more than makes up for the fact when you include such a solid bracelet and clasp with this timepiece, and you keep the cost below $450 US. Now before I throw this watch on the wrist, I just wanted to show you the case back, which has a very deeply engraved Mako shark there, screwed down case back for the 300-meter water resist rating. And these pieces might actually be limited. As you can see, this is number 48 out of a total of 200 per colorway. So if you are interested in this watch, I highly recommend you pick this up in the near future. They tend to sell out before the early bird pricing has completed. And here's a quick wrist shot for you so you can see how the ZELOS Mako 3 fits on my 19 centimeter circumference or about 7.5 inch wrist. And with this bracelet, the clasp here just balances out the head of the watch so well. It's extremely comfortable on wrist, and it does give you a bit of wrist presence as well. Now before I conclude the video, are there any potential improvements for the next Mako 3 iteration? Well, there's only some minor comments that I would like to reiterate here. One is I do find that the bezel action is a bit tight and the grip could be slightly improved like they did on the ZELOS Swordfish. And then lastly, just do be aware that you're still getting a great automatic movement here with the Miyota 9015. Anecdotally, this has picked up about plus 6 seconds per day on the time I've had it on my wrist, but some people would prefer to have a Swiss Sellita SW200. But guys, taken together, this is one of the best value pack divers that I've reviewed this year, as I've already mentioned. But as always guys, please leave your feedback in the comment section of this video. Which ZELOS Mako colorway is your favorite for this year and why? Thanks for sticking around to the end of the video, and as always, if you enjoy the content, why don't you smash that subscription button? It helps me out a lot, and that way you'll stay up to date on future reviews on my channel.